We begin with breaking news and details from inside Idaho's death chamber.
Mr. Creech came into the room. He looked back at his witness room and his eyes started to fill with tears.
For an hour this morning, convicted serial killer Thomas Creech laid on what was supposed to be his deathbed. Instead, Idaho's first execution in more than a decade failed. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Derek Dice. The news from Boise comes amid another major development in an Idaho capital murder case in Moscow. We now have a timeline on when a trial date could be set for the man suspected of killing 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. We'll have that in just a few minutes. First, Jordan Smith with the story of what happened in the prison death chamber today. Jordan.
73-year-old Thomas Creech was minutes away from lethal injection. He was strapped down in the death chamber. Everything was moving along scheduled just fine, but medical professionals failed to administer an IV into Creech on 8 separate occasions, prompting the state to put this execution on hold.
And when it became clear that that wasn't going to be successful, that's when the execution was halted.
Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate lives to see another day. The medical team inside the death chamber unable to establish an IV in the 73-year-old serial killer. As a result, a lethal injection could not be administered, and the execution was halted.
It wasn't a difficult decision. It was the right decision to halt any future attempts at trying to establish IV access. Let's call it, and we'll discuss next steps after that.
Director of Idaho Department of Corrections Josh Tewalt says the state will not make any further attempts on this death warrant, which expires at 11:59 tonight. It's the first failed execution in the state of Idaho. The 5-time convicted killer was transported to receive medical treatment and then returned to his cell, evading yet another death warrant.
And Tewalt told the media today he has the utmost confidence in this medical team. They're very experienced. Some of them have performed an execution in Idaho before. But as it stands right now, this is the first failed execution that the state has seen, Derek.
Now, Jordan, the biggest question on people's minds right now is what happens next? Is the state going to pursue another death warrant now?
That's the question that we asked the state earlier today, and the basic answer is we don't really know, and they don't know. We're told that there are going to be discussions here in the coming days, but it's unclear whether or not the state will pursue a 13th death warrant against Thomas Creech. But it's important to note that if Idaho were to pursue another execution, they would have to acquire new chemicals needed for a lethal injection, which means it could be a while before another execution is pursued, if they decide to pursue one at all. Live in Boise tonight, Jordan Smith, 4 News Now.
All right, Jordan, thank you. Governor Brad Little responded in a statement today saying the team of professionals at IDOC was prepared for the possibility that medical professionals would not be able to access the inmate's veins, a circumstance that has occurred in execution procedures elsewhere in the country.
I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated. The fact is, you can't look at that television and say nothing happened.